All right, Mr. Chair, would you like to move House File 3540 before the division with a recommendation that it is re-referred to the Judiciary, Finance, and Civil Law Committee?
Yes.
There's a couple of amendments with your bill. I believe A1 amendment's yours. We're not going to be offering that one today. Is that correct?
That's correct, Mr. Chair. While it is a very important addition to the bill, we need to tighten up the language to ensure it accomplishes what we want.
Excellent. So the A1 amendment has been withdrawn. Mr. Chair, would you like to introduce your bill before we move on with further amendments?
Sure. This bill was something I drafted or had drafted for me. Last year, I've received a couple of phone calls from people in the state that were having issues with their employment and housing due to their veteran status. It was clear discrimination because they were veterans, and I was very surprised to find out that veterans was not a protected class in the Human Rights Amendment, or Human Rights Department, and I added this, or want to add it, so that's what this bill does.
Excellent. Thank you, Mr. Chair. There is another amendment. I believe it was going to be from Representative Lee. And seeing he is not here, Mr. Chairman Zhang, would you like to move the amendment or find someone to do so?
I will move the A2 amendment, Mr. Chair.
Excellent. Co-Chair Zhang has moved the A2 amendment. Would you please describe the amendment for the committee?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It basically just adds the veterans of the Secret War and Laos to be included in the bill.
Chairman Bliss, do you have any comments on this amendment?
It's a friendly amendment. I would request a yes vote. Thank you.
Are there any further discussion on this amendment? Seeing none, all those in favor of the amendment, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. The motion prevails. The amendment's adopted. All right, Mr. Chair, you introduced your bill already. We've got some testifiers here, so unless you have anything further, I would like to have Nick Slade could come up and testify with John Kelly in reserve, ready to go. All right, sir, would you please state your name for the record and begin your testimony?
Good morning, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. For the record, my name is Nicholas Slade. I am the Deputy General Counsel for the Department of Military Affairs. And let's see here. All right. I realize that Amendment 1 has not been brought forward, but we do want to go on the record as being very supportive of Amendment 1. One of the problems that we as members of the National Guard face is that unless we deploy to active duty, we don't necessarily meet the federal definition and actually some of the state definitions for veterans. So because our drill time and our annual training don't qualify as federal service, we don't necessarily trigger the federal veterans. And as you know, we're the state forces, we're serving the state should be taking care of us. And so the Amendment 1, we want to be on record as supporting. One of the other things that we wanted to bring to your attention is, because we're talking about protections and discriminations that occur, is that the protections under Minnesota law for secondary education we want to point out a problem that we're facing in that when we're called to active duty, or and particularly this has come up a couple times, both for the state active duty and for annual training, is that we have students who have to miss part of their education. And as part of that, while they are offered the opportunity to withdraw, in particular, some of the programs that are 2-year and what I would call sort of linear continual programs for certificates, where each class builds on the next class, and it's a certificate program that often doesn't offer the class again until a year later. So if our troops, our Guard members have to pull out of the class or miss multiple classes, they may be forced to either withdraw from the program or wait a whole nother year before they complete it. And so we'd like to raise that issue with, and put that on your radar. Because it has been reoccurring. It happened, I had one soldier with this just last current deployment for state active duty. And while we tried working with the school, we ultimately had to release him early from active duty and return him so that he could complete the program. But he ended up missing 2 weekends. And it was a bit of a struggle, and we had to really twist the arms of the school to try and get it. So we would like to work with you on toughening up our educational protections. With that, if there's any questions, I would be happy to take them.
Excellent. Are there any questions for Mr. Slade? Seeing no questions, Representative Feist looks like she's contemplating a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't know, I'm having more questions for myself and asking them out loud will show
Are you
what I
having a
don't
good
know, but-
conversation with yourself?
Yeah, right. I was just trying to think, like, I was just thinking through what you were just sharing, and I was just thinking, like, sometimes it just might be really hard for an academic institution, like you were talking about missed practicums, and so I was just thinking, like, about reasonable accommodations and what can they do and what they should do in a situation where there isn't, like where whatever the program is just can't accommodate just due to the nature of what they're studying. And so then I was thinking to myself, and this is where I should definitely know the answer, I was just like, what are the, like, would the veteran then be able to sue the institution? And I was thinking, well, that's not like a great scenario. It feels like that's not what we're going for. So anyway, those were the thoughts that I was having in my head. And if you have any thoughts on those, I'd appreciate them.
Mr. Slade?
Mr. Chair, Representative Feist. Yes, one of the things that one of the differences between the current state protections and the federal protections, which again don't kick in firstly for 30 days, but also you have to be going on to federal status, so they wouldn't cover us when we're doing state active duty. But one of the major differences, and I put it in the slide, I didn't go through it earlier, but the federal standard is that it has to impose an undue hardship on the school. It puts some burden on the school to work with the student to try and come up with extra tutoring or whatever. But unless it causes an undue hardship on the school, they're required to do it. There really isn't a right to sue so much, but under the federal statute, because some of the educational funding federal educational funding is also tied. I think they probably run the risk of losing it. I'm not 100% sure on that, but it didn't, in my review of the federal law, there didn't look to be a right of action.
Any further, follow-up?
Yeah, thank you. That's helpful. I think that like undue burden standard seems very reasonable to me. And so are you saying that basically in passing this, we would be kind of taking that federal standard and bringing it to the state level by incorporating this into the Human Rights Act?
That would be my choice. That would, my hope is that by bringing in the federal standard, which our current standard sort of reads as, reasonable accommodations, that's kind of a low, and a lot of these are, sort of flexible. But by making it an undue hardship, it puts a little bit more burden on the school and the community to work with and help our Guard members.
So to shed a little bit more light on the subject, we have House Nonpartisan Research, Mary Davis, with the answer.
Hi, Chair and members, Mary Davis with House Research. I would just follow up on what you were saying because I think it would create a little bit more education for those higher ed institutions, so they would be maybe learning to work with students in advance, because the state law would require them to work with students, not to discriminate against current students or students that are seeking to enroll in the program. They can't exclude them and they can't discriminate against them, so it might create more information in that area about working with students. And then the Minnesota Human Rights Act does have that administrative process, so it's not necessarily a lawsuit, but they could use that administrative process, which has a much lower barrier than getting into court. It doesn't cost money, and it's less litigious, if that makes sense.
Any further comments? Seeing none, we'll move on to our next testifier, John Kelly. Good morning, sir. Would you please state your name for the record and begin your testimony?
Good morning, Chair and members. For the record, John Kelly, Director of Government Affairs for the Minnesota Department of Veterans Affairs. Thank you for the opportunity to testify in support of House File 3540. If this bill is passed into law, Minnesota would join 5 other states that have added veteran or military status as a protected class under state-level non-discrimination statutes. So California has veteran or military status in the Fair Employment and Housing Act. Massachusetts has status of a veteran in the unlawful discrimination because of race, color, religious creed, national origin, ancestry, or sex statute. Ohio has military status in unlawful discriminatory practices. Virginia has military status in the Virginia Human Rights Act. And Washington has honorably discharged veteran or military status in the Discrimination Human Rights Commission. Additionally, Minnesota State added veteran status to their Policy 1B Equal Opportunity, Non-Discrimination in Employment and Education policy in June of 2022. This update to the Minnesota Human Rights Act furthers the interests of veterans and provides them additional protection under state law. This is a great addition to the existing ecosystem of support for veterans and those still currently serving. We would encourage support. I will also note anecdotally, we're talking about the education piece. I'm not a doctor, but I did go to undergrad for 7 years because I was in the National Guard during that time. And I was lucky that I had some pretty understanding professors. So I think it's worthwhile that the committee is kicking the tires on that. And with that, I'll stand for any questions.
With that, are there any questions for the testifier or for Chair Bliss? Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Chair Bliss, I'm just curious, do you know why veterans were not included in the Human Rights Act?
I have no idea. I wasn't around when it was created. Again, I was surprised that it wasn't. Like I said, 2 constituents had contacted me. I told them to go to the Human Rights Administration, and they said that they did, and it wasn't included. So I have no idea why they left it out initially.
Do we have anyone from the Human Rights Department here? Okay, that's it. I'm just curious. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Chair Zhang, just a note for you, they will be in judiciary with the next committee stop is for this bill. So, House Research?
Chair and members, the Minnesota Human Rights Act is actually one of the oldest human rights acts in the United States. The earliest ones only had a couple of protected classes in it, and they added protected classes like slowly over time. So it's been redrafted and recodified a number of times since the 1960s.
Any further questions, comments, or concerns? All right. With that, Chair Bliss, would you like to finish up the bill?
Yeah, thank you. It's just correcting an oversight, in my opinion. I think it's really needed that we recognize veterans in this way and protect them.
Perfect. Chair Bliss renews his motion that House File 3540 as amended is re-referred to the Judiciary Committee. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed say nay. The motion prevails, and the bill is on its way to Judiciary.